is live. Okay. We are live. Copy and paste. Copy. Yes. All right. Get the people what they want, right? Get the people what they want. It's what we do, tickets. What we do. That's what we do, dude. I can hear it. All right, cool. All right, people, bear with us. We're going live very, very soon. Meeting. We'll start the pod by live. That's what it means.
Yep.
Okay. Copy and paste all this. Can we copy and paste it all? We can, and we shall. Okay. I can hear myself in the background. Here we go, ticket. We're about to get started. Just finishing off here. And then we can get it going. All right. How's your day, Ticket? How's your day?
Long.
Well,
Long for
we're here to
sure.
make it a little happier, right? That's what we do.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the duty calls during the day, but we have fun at night.
Duty does call.
Duty does call. And speaking of duty, all right, we'll get it started. You ready to rock? Are you ready to rock?
Let's do it, kid.
We got an exciting night here. Let's get fucking it. We can swear all we want. FCC not watching us, right?
That's right.
Welcome to week 124, count it, week 124 of Shark Sports Radio. Alongside of me is Andrew George. He goes by Ticket. It's yours truly, Mark Loisel Jr., a.k.a. Shark, right here in the Ocean State. Thank you all for taking a dive in the tank with us tonight. As always, you can tune in using your Apple Podcast, SoundCloud, and or Spotify app. Check us out on YouTube at the Shark Sports Radio channel, TikTok at Shark Sports Radio, X at SSR34_. And we're promoted by Underdog. Underdog Fantasy, use the promo code Shark Sports. You get $1,000 in bonus cash. Make the most of it. I'm telling you, NFL's now coming up, right? We're going through MLB. You can do a little mixing and matching, however you want to dice it up. Ticket and I, we've had our luck. We've had our great luck with Underdog. So we definitely want you guys to keep tuning in, utilize that app, and use the promo code Shark Sports. So, Ticket, before we get into our new segment, we will sprinkle in page turns, people. Don't you worry. We have a long schedule coming up in the coming weeks. So we will give you all that and more. But I got to talk about something. I am beyond sore. My body is crushing me with my legs. I did a workout yesterday. And I was doing squats, I was doing lunges, I was doing calf raises, I was doing all these different exercises. And I'm like, damn, you know what, Ticket? I haven't done legs in quite some time. And I was hurting. I still am hurting. We went on for a walk after work, and my oh my, does my legs, my lower body extremities crush me today. But legs it's not for everybody, right? Like exercising legs, like it's freaking tough. But my dad has always said, hey, after you're an athlete, after you're done with high school, after you're done with college, no more squats. You don't have to do squats. But guess what? I did squats.
Good
The
squats.
glutes hurt. The glutes hurt.
Gotta work the glutes.
It's like Yeah, got to go with the glutes. You got the calves, you got the hamstrings, you got the quads, you got them all. I'm hurting. I'm hurting. But what's not making me hurt is preseason footballs tonight, right? We got the Colts and the Baltimore
Ravens.
Ravens. I
Yep.
think, is it Anthony Richardson that just got hurt?
Did he?
I believe, yes, I believe he had a finger issue on the follow through with the football, the pigskin, right? That's what we call it, the pigskin.
You call
The
it
old
that.
timers. Oh, also, if anybody wants to check it out, oh shit, Miami Mike in
Miami
the
Mike.
house. Yep, Miami Mike. So we're gonna get into NFL Camp Confidential. It's a brand new segment that Tika and I drew up. We're going to discuss tonight the AFC East and the NFC East. And if anybody doesn't know the teams are involved, go check us out at SSR34_ and take the polls. We want to hear you. You know, if you want the Commanders to win the NFC East and you're tired of the Eagles, go right ahead. If you want the Patriots or the Jets to win the AFC East, you know, don't pick the Bills. Don't pick them. Don't do it.
Why don't you say the Dolphins?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll save that for the show. And so let's get into it now. So again, this is NFL Camp Confidential SSR edition tonight.
Right, baby.
We're getting into the Bills. Well, let's get into the Bills ticket. Let me tell you, we're going to discuss the key players. We're going to discuss the key losses. We're going to discuss the rookies. We're going to discuss the strength of schedule. I don't think people understand, but the strength of schedule it plays a major factor. And so we have to discuss that. It always does, right? So the Bills' record last year was 13-4, right? We all know their key players, you know, with Josh Allen and James Cook and, you know, Matt Milano. They got a decent offensive line there. Ticket, what draws out to you with their key losses? Because I think they lost a good chunk of their defense, and let's be honest, they, you know, offensively they gotta get their stuff back in gear.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, you got to be honest. I think part of it too is like they were without Matt Milano for a good chunk of last year. Obviously, really missed out on his presence. You know, as the
Sure.
Mike backer for them, kind of like they had other veterans, like they signed Von Miller, but I mean Milano was, you know, Buffalo draftee, Boston College kid, by the way. So shout out BC. As bad as their program has been, they always seem to, you know, develop solid pros every now and then. So
Yeah. Shout out
yeah,
to
I mean,
Bill
obviously,
O'Brien.
so
Great guy.
yeah.
Great guy.
So you got Matt Milano. By the way, Bill O'Brien, a Brown University guy. But
Yeah.
Matt Milano, Greg Russo obviously coming back, Terrell Bernard, Christian Benford at corner. I think the biggest thing for them, they did lose Kyer Elam, who was one of their starting corners in the back end. But listen, they lose Von Miller, but they bring in Joey Bosa. Bosa's had a long list of injury concerns, but when he's healthy, there's no doubt he's very productive. They added some receiver depth with Josh Palmer, so they took a couple of Chargers, brought them over. Tre'Davious White returns after his stint with the Rams, and he's a veteran presence. Once again, he's going to be a veteran leader for them. Being a Bills draftee years ago, had success in Buffalo, now returning. The biggest thing for them,
Yep.
I think, was their draft class, and they took a bunch of guys on defense early rounds with Max Harrison, T.J. Saunders, and at nose tackle. You know, the Bills' defense was what let them down, and now they're certainly, you know, kind of retooled. They got younger in some places. We'll see how it turns out, but you know, it's obviously the Bills' division, Shark, and we've known that for the last couple of years, especially with us, you know, being, you know, I'm a Jets fan, you're a Bills fan. I mean, sorry, Dolphins fan, excuse me. I didn't want to misspeak.
Yeah.
But,
Take that back. Take that shit
I
back.
guess there could be worse things than being a Bills fan. Like, could be a Pats fan.
No, facts.
But yeah.
Facts.
But anyways,
We got
Yeah.
a lot of Pats in the audience, so you gotta be very,
Yeah,
very
of course.
careful and delicate.
of course.
Yeah,
But
you
yeah,
don't
at
wanna
the end of the
start
day,
shit, 'cause-
Buffalo, I think they got better. They had a solid offseason.
Yeah.
Not one of the best, but I think they got, like I said, they got help where they needed it. They got, you know, younger, faster on defense, which is what really got them exposed, I thought, in that, you know, second half
Yep.
against the Chiefs. And That's kind of
Look,
my take on it.
I like the Bills, right? I think a lot of people do. Um, but I think one thing that we don't talk about enough is the culture that the Bills have built. It seems like as long as Josh Allen and Sean McDermott are there, they're really not going to change. Um, but kudos to the rest of the AFC East kind of thinking out loud about, yeah, maybe we should add Mike Vrabel instead of having Gerard Mayo as our coach for the Pats. Maybe for the Jets, we start thinking smartly and get rid of Robert Saleh and, bring in Aaron Glenn, right? I think like sometimes organizations are what we call complacent and they don't feel like their backs against the wall every single year. Well, guess what? The Bills put you in that position every single year. And if you're not good enough, you're not going to be a wild card. Because guess what? You got to play them twice a year. You got to play your division twice a year. So if you look at the strength of schedule for the Bills, I don't think it even matters, right? Like their strength of schedule right now is the 5th easiest in the NFL according to NFL.com. They are playing against opponents that had a 4.67 winning percentage in 2024. Tell me that matters. It doesn't matter. The Bills, it's a systematic approach every single year. It's the Bill Belichick and Tom Brady tandem. It's very, very similar when it comes to division wins. Not Super Bowls, people. Don't get it twisted. Division wins. The Buffalo Bills have always been on the high. And it's like one of those things, again, if you look at it, if the scheme works, it's really a plug and play for a lot of different positions. A really good example, too, is like with the Bills getting rid of Stephon Diggs last year. And then what they put in? Shakur? Shakur got like almost 60 or 70
got
touches.
Got an extension
Right.
too this offseason.
Right. But they also have Keenan Coleman. They added Joshua Palmer, from the Chargers. There's a lot of different components that they added that can only make their team a lot stronger. And yet, I think a lot of people don't understand that the AFC East is trying to get tougher. But as long as the Bills are still there, Sean McDermott and Josh Allen, it is going to be difficult. So I think it's safe to say that the Bills have a comfort about them. Yes, they went through hell with Damar Hamlin. I'm sure that made everyone a lot stronger on their team. And they've play against the Chiefs almost every playoffs, and so they have that experience. I think Von Miller's a big hit for them leaving on. I think Joey Bosa's big though, so it's like again a plug and play. As long as their system is in place, that's all that matters. So I think that we got to focus on the other teams. And another team we can go to right now is the Miami Dolphins. I'll talk about them because this is one of those things where you don't get better in the offseason. Now, you could say the Minkah Fitzpatrick trade, get rid of Jalen Ramsey and not having to pay Jonnu Smith. You feel like it's a salary dump. You feel like, Jalen Ramsey wasn't getting along with the front office and the head coach. Well, guess what? You got worse. You did. I like Minkah. I think Minkah is an all-pro safety. But guess what? Your secondary hurts tremendously without Fuller, without Javon Holland, without Ramsey. Who, right now, Ticket, because, you don't follow the Dolphins, I do. But who is their QB1, cornerback 1 in their secondary? Name their CB1. You fucking can't. You
I know
can't.
they lost to Javon Holland. Obviously, they lost Ramsey as well. Yeah,
You
I
can't
think it's
name
tough.
it.
I mean, their secondary is a major concern.
Yeah. So my point is, they have Storm Duck, a second-year player from
UNC.
Oregon. And he played at UNC. They also have, who else do they have? They have Jack Jones, the guy that can't stay on the field because he has off-field issues. And my oh my, what a place to be in Miami. It's the hot weather. It's just it is what it is, right? Tyreek Hill and him will probably get pulled over at some point before a game again, which I thought was stupid when that happened because Tyreek didn't, deserve that. But again, it's just one of those things where Jack Jones looks for trouble, unfortunately. So I don't know if he's even going to play, right? They went out and got a guy like Mike Hilton, who was a part of, yes, the Steelers in the past, but he was also part of a terrible Bengals defense. So like, if you kind of look at the scope of the Dolphins' makeup in the secondary, it's by far their weakness. By far. I don't care what anybody says. Their defense in the secondary is horrific. That being said, what's going to help out their secondary is their pass rush. They re-signed Zach Sealer to a 3-year deal. They have Bradley Chubb coming back from injury, Jalen Phillips as well. They have Jordan Brooks, one of the best tackle linebackers in the game. They do have guys in the safety position like Ashton Davis and possibly, like I said, Minkah Fitzpatrick. But their linebacking core, Tyrell Dodson, their defensive line is the best. Their defensive line is the core, and that's what's going to allow them to get after the quarterback, and maybe it won't be as much pressure on their secondary. But guess what? If you're dealing with scrambled quarterbacks, you're in trouble. You're in for a rude awakening because guess what? Plays are alive, and that means players are getting downfield, and that means your quarterbacks are getting burnt upon burnt upon burnt. And it doesn't matter if Jalen Ramsey was on your team and he was breaking up coverage. It doesn't matter. Your secondary got worse, and not for nothing, but you have an offense that is more than capable of being a top 5 offense in the NFL. But guess what? Your quarterback can't stay healthy. It's writing on the wall. You're gonna see it. It's the 6th or 7th week of the season, and Tua gets hurt. Who knows what happens? What they always say, and Ticket, this is very, very true. When you have one concussion, guess what follows very, very easily? Another. He's up to his 4th concussion of his career. He had a broken hip in college. You're telling me that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are better off without him? No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But I will tell you this. That offensive line is in for also a rude awakening. They're not that good. Austin Jackson's hurt. They got Jonah Savanoa, from Arizona. They have Patrick Paul because Teron Armstead called it quits. I just look at this team and it's very, very minimal improvement. Very, very minimal. And so with that, they do have an easy schedule. They do. They have one of the easiest schedules in football. I think it's top 3. But you can't tell me that they're a wild card playoff team. I can't look you straight in the face. Maybe offensively, if Tua stays healthy and they had Devon Achane healthy all year round, which was also a concerning factor last year. He couldn't stay on the field. It seems like Miami's in for a tough situation regardless of their schedule because of the quarterbacks that they will be playing, and their secondary will not be able to handle unless Tua scores 38 points a game. That's not going to happen. So feedback on the Finns community.
Yeah, I mean, for an offseason that was going to be as big as Miami's facing, right? You just said it. Tua's pretty much on, it's a make or break season for Tua. It's make or break for Mike McDaniel, your boy Miami Mike, right there on your sweater.
Yep.
And what was going into the offseason with everyone knowing that, it felt like their moves weren't parallel, did not coincide. did not match the sense of urgency that everyone is placing on Tua McDaniel and how they need to get it done. Because the moves in the
Right.
offseason don't get it done, and I'm not just saying that as a Jet fan. I objectively, and I think you would agree, I think many Dolphin fans would agree, it doesn't line up. So the one thing I did like that they did was they did address some offensive line issues, and obviously like Tua's got to learn when to run, slide, take the hits, not take the. I mean, he's done some things. He's put himself in some bad spots at times.
It's a
But I
broken
thought
record at
Miami
this
at least
point.
got better
Yeah. Yeah.
with their offensive line play. James Daniels has been really good at guard when he's healthy. So that's kind of like a bargain bin signing there. They got Kenneth Grant and then your boy Jonah, and I'm not going to know how to pronounce his last name, but their draft pick on the offensive line there too with Jonah Savavos, whatever, Jonah S. So
Jonah.
they got better there. Ultimately, Tyreek Hill. It just feels like at any moment things could go really south with him. Waddle, you
Yep.
started to see kind of like getting phased out of the offense during last season at times. The good news, Shark, is if Tua does go down, you got Zach Wilson to step in. So that's
No, Quinn Ewers.
that should be
Quinn
reassuring.
Ewers. I said this. After the draft. Quinn Ewers will be a huge pickup for Miami because it will push Tua in preseason and in training camp and focus on what could be potentially the future because Tua does have an option, a team option. Very, very close. I think it's in 2020 after the 2026 season. So they can decide pretty quickly whether Quinn Ewers is the future. But
Yeah.
I just had to add that in.
I really do think Zach Wilson might get a chance, and not just because of Tua's injuries, but because his arm is so live, and that's kind of like the element with Tua where like they don't push it as much downfield as much as Hill would like. And I'll tell you, like as much as Wilson and I don't like him, and I think he stinks, and he's been a bad NFL quarterback, and that's me being polite. He's got a cannon, and he can sling it downfield. And I'll tell you what, Mike McDaniel might have some wrinkles in that offense where they get to expose
Yeah.
that. And the one thing is he did spend a year in Denver under Sean Payton, and maybe the Sean Payton quarterback school, he grows from it. We saw Sam Darnold have success. Not that Darnold was as disastrous as Wilson was in New York, but you saw
No.
Darnold take a year off, learn from Kyle Shanahan, a great offensive mind, and then look a year later, gets paired up with a really good offensive mind in Kevin O'Connell. And obviously the Vikings have weapons there, but the Miami doesn't have. It's not like Miami's lacking weapons. You got Hill, you got Waddle, you added Westbrook, Kinney, or whatever. He's a good downfield threat.
Yep.
So there's a lot of speed on that offense. Obviously Achan. So you never know, but I think the potential's there, but it's always been there, and it's put up or shut up time for the quarterback coach combo.
I was just going to say this, and we'll get into your Jets because I know we got to talk about them. Tyreek Hill joins us. Teron Armstead joins us. Bradley Chubb joins us. Right? These guys come
Ramsey.
from winning backgrounds. Ramsey, yeah, he won with the Rams, right?
Yep.
And so it's just crazy to me that an organization that has all these winning players could not put it together. It only made it to the playoffs once and got bounced in wild card the first round against the Bills, and you got absolutely pummeled. So guess what? You kind of wasted Tyreek Hill's window. You wasted Ramsey's window. Teron Armstead, yeah, he's helping out the offensive line in practice and in preseason, but you wasted his window. Yeah, all these guys got paid, but it just shows that, unfortunately, this organization just doesn't know how to win. And so that's what it comes down to. So speaking of another organization that doesn't know how to win, but we'll
Great
see
segue.
what they can do. We'll see what they can do in the future. It's the Jets. What you got on them?
Yeah. So, I mean, I thought they had a relatively decent offseason, and I feel like I'm your standard Jets fan that, like, I hate, the love-hate and the pessimism, but then get optimistic. And if I'm being real, though, I do think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm biased. I do think from a roster
You are
standpoint,
biased, but go ahead.
I am biased.
Yeah.
From a roster standpoint, Shark, it's hard for me to argue. Like it's hard for me to say like New England's getting so much love, and maybe it's just because we live around here, we hear it a lot in the media. But I feel like the national media is giving New England a lot of love. I think the Jets have a better roster than them, and I think their roster is better than Miami's. Now,
Yeah, I agree.
the quote, there's so much talent on that defense, and listen, they lose Sala and the wheels fell off. You now add Aaron Glenn, who was, listen, I know they got exposed last year in the Commanders game, but they had a lot of injuries they dealt with. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson
Yep.
going down does not help. But the Lions, for the last few years under Aaron Glenn, they got better every year defensively. Their defense at one point was a top defense throughout the last, I would say, 2 seasons or so. Injuries caught up to them last year and they got exposed, but I wouldn't put all of that on Aaron Glenn either. I don't love the Glenn hiring, to be honest, but he's my guy. Support him. He's my head coach. I loved the Saleh hiring at the time, and we saw how that turned out. So maybe it doesn't, clearly doesn't make a difference what I think. But I do like
Maybe it's gonna
Daryl
work.
Mugie, the GM.
Maybe it's gonna work
I don't
and
know if
she
it's
didn't
going to work
like
or
it.
not, but I at least like that. It's a guy who wants to be here. He played for the Jets, was drafted by the Jets. He knows the Johnson family. He's not going to be, turned off by whatever goes on there. He's a guy that wants to be here, had success here as a player, and is committed to the turnaround. And I really like the Justin Fields signing and the fact that it's low risk, high reward. Fields is only 26 years old. And at one point,
Yep.
at Ohio State, it was Lawrence and then Fields, and they were the 1A, 1B, or if you want to say Lawrence was definitively the one, which I would say. But at one point, Fields was a big quarterback prospect. And he hasn't had the success in the league, obviously. But I think the one thing he's going to get is now this is kind of like how, this is the most comfortable he's ever going to be. In Chicago, as bad as the Jets are, the Bears have been a dumpster fire as well. And he did not have an offensive line there. He didn't have weapons there. Goes to Pittsburgh, was 3-1 as a starter before getting benched when Wilson got healthy. And I understand, Fields was struggling pushing the ball upfield for them. But at the end of the day, he's now paired up with Garrett Wilson, who's the best receiver he's ever thrown the ball to. And their teammates at Ohio State had great chemistry. So right there, I think he's going to be comfortable. Aaron Glenn is empowering him. You have a great run game with Breece Hall and Allen in the backfield. The offensive line got so much better. And we're Armand Membu obviously being a huge part of that. Now you got Vera Tucker coming back healthy. I think the Jets' offensive line it's very young. Everyone's 26 years and under, and they've got a lot of snaps. Most of them have a lot of snaps under their belt. So I love their O-line. I love the fact that they're going to be committed to the run. I love that Fields is going to be in the most comfortable spot he's ever been in his career. So if I'm going to roll the dice, he's not costing them anything. Very minimal. And from a locker room standpoint, Rodgers brought everybody's energy level down. The firing of Saleh brought everybody down. It showed with the defense because they were disinterested. They checked out at times during games. I don't think you're going to see that with Glenn. I don't think you're going to see that with Fields. I think at least this is going to be a very different culture, but the culture change is needed. I think there's going to be a lot of energy. I'm optimistic. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're a 7 or 8 win ball club, but I think they're at least building something in the right direction. And listen, Fields is not, like I said, he's not costing them anything, and he's still so young.
Nope.
And if he busts out and turns into the quarterback everyone thought he could be, great. If not, no harm, no foul. You roll the dice again next year on a quarterback. So I think their roster's in a really good spot. The quarterback is the biggest piece of the puzzle, though, Shark, and they haven't gotten it done in my lifetime, really. Chad Pennington's the only guy I could think of that, and Testaverde for a bit. We had 1 year with Fitzpatrick where the love was there and, he played well. But
the Sanchez? Come on.
I mean, even that, though, but he wasn't the reason why we were,
No.
That's the formula for
tremendous.
Fields, right? Is we run heavy, we play defense, and he keeps us in a game. All you got to do is not turn it over and keep you in the game.
And that's what I think happens, right? And if I look at Fields and what he's capable of doing, I think his ceiling is Baker Mayfield. I really think that he could eventually be. I think he could turn around his career. I mean, as long as Aaron Glenn and Engstrand can put something together. Engstrom came from the Detroit with Aaron Glenn, so they have real good chemistry and rapport. But I think if you look at the offensive side of football for the Lions and how they're built, yeah, they rely heavily on the run, right? They build up that offensive line, which they did in the
Gibbs,
draft with
Montgomery,
Benbu,
the O line,
right?
yeah.
And you got Brees Hall and you got Allen, right? Like a 1-2 combo, right? But also, I think it's important that feels like, right? He's got a great defense. He's got a good offensive line, great running game potentially, as long as Brees can stay healthy. But then also, the weapons are like icing on the cake. Like, yeah, he has Mason Taylor, and he's got
I
as you
love
mentioned with Garrett Wilson.
I love Mason
But
Taylor, by
I
the
think
way.
Mason Taylor was like the sneakiest pickup when it came to the Jets in the draft, because I think he's going to help out that running game. And if you look at Detroit, like I said, the way that they've been built, run heavy, but they rely on security blankets, right? And security blankets were, Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jamison Williams was a threat downfield. Josh Reynolds could be that for you guys, right? And so I just kind of look at the Jets and I say they don't look too bad. It's just they got to really put it all together. And Justin Fields has to acknowledge that he can be like Jared Goff was, coming from the Rams to the Lions, and same with Baker Mayfield going from Carolina Panthers and the Rams to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Let the defense do their job. You don't turn over the ball as much. You keep third downs alive. You utilize that powerful running game with a great offensive line. It's a great ingredient to have. And if there's any coach that could promise you at least the ability to want to win, is Dan Campbell. And I think Aaron Glenn is taking bits and pieces from Campbell's experience as head coach of Detroit, and I think it could potentially translate into winning ways for the Jets. Now, there's a whole lot to make up in preseason, in training camp. Get acclimated with your receivers, get acclimated with the defense, figure out where guys need to be. We haven't even mentioned Sauce Gardner being one of the best cornerbacks in the game. I just look at that and I say that's like the recipe for a winning franchise. So I gotta say my hopes for the Jets are decently high, um, because of Aaron Glenn's Brown and the way that they ran the football in Detroit. Like I said, it's allowing the defense to do the work, and allowing the running game to complement the passing game and not turn over the ball. That's just, I think, how it's going to go. And that may sound easy,
It always does.
like point A to point B, but that's what you need to do. You don't got to get crazy. You don't got to pull Ben Johnson plays out your ass. I think that's what they have to do. And, having a record of 5-12 cannot be nice to Mr. Johnson in the front office. So
And listen, they lost a lot of one-score games. Like, the reason why you bring Rodgers is to win those games in the fourth quarter, and not all of that was Rodgers' fault either. Like, not to defend him, but I'm gonna defend him. The defense gave up game-winning drives to Anthony Richardson and Jacoby Brissett and Bo Nix. Like, there were chances to win games. Josh Allen was another one early in the year. We lost to Buffalo, blew a lead. So like, they were very close. Things go one way or another. This league. Things are the old Al Pacino line and what is it? It's not the
any
line.
given Sunday.
Any given Sunday. Game of inches. It's a game of inches, Shark.
Yeah.
And one thing
Game of
breaks
inches.
one way or another, changes everything. So I think the
Yeah.
roster is really good. I'm optimistic that they'll at least be more competitive from a wins-loss record than they were a year ago.
Yep.
I think they'll have a better record. I think they can compete for second in the division, and maybe that's good enough to be in the wild card picture. I don't know. We're about to talk about New England because that's
Yeah. And look,
last team in
before
the
before
division.
I'll say this before we get to New England, I do want to bring up that I think it's a maturity that the Jets did what they did this offseason. I think you could easily fall into being complacent and say, you know what? No, let's keep Salah for another year. Let's bring Rodgers back. Let's bring Devontae Adams back, and let's do this again, right? Let's give it another try. No, it's actually a very good thing that
It's refreshing.
if you are a Jets supporter, that it's a professional league, and you want to have the best players, the best coaches, in the best position in order to succeed. And we saw that mid-season that Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh were not getting along, and it was just one of those things where it just turned into turmoil. So if there's any key component coming out of this offseason for the Jets, is realizing a maturation process for their organization. And that's what they did, and they progressed. And that I think that's great for the Jets. I really do. I wish some organizations would take that step and be like, you know what? We're gonna go take a chance on Justin Fields. We're going to go get an assistant or defensive coordinator from a winning franchise. You can think like that. Just teams don't, and that's the issue. So smart hiring on all cylinders and signings as well.
And I love the Moogie.
Let's get
Moogie at the GM is really good for them too. You know, he had a lot of success in
yeah,
Denver, so I think, you know, we'll see
he
what
did.
happens.
It did. So let's get into New England. We're locals here. We are in New England. Twitter's probably going nuts because I do follow a lot of Celtics followers and Red Sox followers, and they're like, "Can we just get to New England? Like, fuck the Jets, fuck the Dolphins,
Yeah.
screw the Bills." Like, that's just the way the name of the game is. But let's get into AFC East, continuing with the New England Patriots. So the New England Patriots finished 4-13 in 2024. They Gerard Mayo for for whatever reason. I thought it was a bad hiring from the start. I think Robert Kraft just had to live up to his obligation of after Bill left, he would have his successor as Gerard Mayo, heir apparent to Bill Belichick, thinking that that was going to happen, which absolutely did not happen. But again, if you're looking at organizations and what a lot of organizations fall in love with is familiarity, right? Like relatableness, knowing a guy that could take over for your franchise, like Gerard Mayo did last year, and what a shell of a season that was, to now Mike Vrabel. And yes, Mike Vrabel's built differently. We acknowledge that, but we don't acknowledge that the Patriots love to bring their former players, their former coaches, back into the mix. And that's a sign for me. Yes, you've won. You've won multiple championships under Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, right? This is not to say that Josh McDaniels is going to do what he did to Tom Brady. You can't think like that. And also, yes, Mike Vrabel is a good coach in Tennessee, but let's not talk about him as the next Don Shula or Lombardi. Like that's not happening. Or even Bill Belichick. Let's talk about Bill. But I always say Bill and Tom Brady go in tandem, right? That's always been the case for me. But you have to acknowledge that Mike Vrabel didn't have the best years in Tennessee. Like, yes, they've won, 9 to 10 wins, right? They've had 9 to 10 wins. But they haven't got to a point where they had success in the playoffs, where they had, an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl and win it, right? And for sure, I understand that the Titans they had Ryan Tannehill, right? They had Derrick Henry and a good offensive line, trying to run the football. Their defense was mediocre. But again, if you're looking at the coach, for Williams, the defensive coordinator for the Patriots, and I believe he does have a little bit of health issues going on, so I believe somebody else is fulfilling those roles for now. But Vrabel brings another guy that he's familiar with. That's not the best thing to put in place. And so I think what they're trying to do is literally figure out something out of nothing, right? Where they didn't have like the coaching staff last year that they do now, right? They didn't have like the players around Drake May in order to be successful. did they go out and do enough in free agency? Sure, they got Harold Landry and they got Bill Williams and Stephon Diggs, but like I don't think that puts them over the top or puts them in the edge of being a second place team in the AFC East. I think if anything, it kind of circles back to them spending too much money in the offseason where they got Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry and they exploded. Everybody went freaking nuts on the radio waves. Like it was the best thing that's ever happened. Well, TreVeyon Henderson's a really nice piece. Will Campbell, a very nice piece. I really think that they did a really good job in the draft. I acknowledge that and I respect that. But I don't think they did enough in free agency. I don't. I think that, like, Carlton Davis, yeah, it's a nice thing to have, but, like, was he 29 years old, 30 years old, coming off an injury? Kyle Duggar can't agree to a contract extension.
I think he's honestly a liability anyway. Like, he's not a really good safety. He's a box safety type, and he's a liability in coverage.
Right. So the picture for me in the offseason is I don't think they did enough for them to be in the hunt, for them to be in the hunt for the AFC East, for a wild card, whatever it is. When you don't do enough, it shows that the lack of maturity in the front office becomes a huge major factor. Because Vrabel was making the decisions with Elliott Wolf, but I look at that and say you brought your guys in. You got a good guy in Milton Williams coming off the Eagles championship. I get that. But Harold Landry is your guy, right? From Boston College and played for Tennessee, right? You licked your chops when you got him. Why not go get Joey Bosa? Was Joey Bosa not interested in New England, which could have been the opposite way? But my whole point is this, Ticket. I think people fall in love with former players that had an impact on a championship team, but they weren't the focal point. And Mike Vrabel did not go to the AFC Championship, the far into the playoffs. Maybe once, right? Was it once with the Kansas City
Chiefs? Yeah.
So, but other than that, he really hasn't done much, and you could easily say that the reason why the Tennessee Titans went to go play against the Kansas City Chiefs is because of Derrick Henry. So, I'm just unsure of why New England did what they did this offseason. I think it's going to come back and bite them in the ass. I really do, unfortunately.
I mean, they're definitively are definitively the busiest team this past offseason, right, in the NFL. I mean, they made so many moves, front office and coaching staff. They made moves, obviously, all over that roster on both sides of the ball.
Yep.
It's just like I look at it, and listen, they did a lot, and I just don't know that if it all.
Yeah, they did.
I don't know if it all adds up in the end. We'll go. I mean, if you're a Pats fan, you get excited about Milton Williams, right? I question whether or not he goes from being a guy that nobody pays attention to on that Eagles defensive line because they have studs all over with Sweat and Carter and Davis. There's
facts.
He's the guy that gets to benefit from having probably the left or right guard try and block him, and they're single teaming him. Or he's getting really no attention. So now he's going to go from
Carter and Jordan Davis were getting all the attention.
Right, and even Sweat too. Sweat was unbelievable. The Eagles have so many pieces on that defense, so many things to worry about. Where he was, I don't want to say a weak link, but he was the forgotten piece, right? No one paid attention to him. Nobody scouted and game planned for Milton Williams. Now you're going from nobody cares to you're paid and
everybody cares.
They're expecting big things out of you. So I question whether or not he's capable of that, which I think is very fair. I think Robert Spillane, people go, they've been going crazy for him. And let's be honest, it's probably because he's the white middle linebacker that plays for the Pats, just like Vrabel and just like Teddy Bruschi. That they get it in their head. Oh, Robert
Ted
Spillane,
Johnson.
Ted Johnson, yeah, the litany of guys that came through. Not that Spillane's bad, but like people talk about, oh, you see, he had all these interceptions in 1 year in Vegas. It's like, all right, well, he can't really cover. They played a lot of zone, whatever. Spillane's a decent
Tackle
back.
machine.
Right.
He's a tackle machine.
You don't expect him to do anything
Yeah.
in coverage. Run stopper, fine, perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But to say that he's going to be, this all pro or Pro Bowl type linebacker, I think is wrong.
What he is, very quickly, Ticket, what he is, his ceiling could be Zach Braun. That's his ceiling. Is he could have the impact. Right. That's what they're hoping, but I don't think they're going to get that production out of him.
So and then, I'm going to keep going down the line here, but I like Carlton Davis. I think that one, you pair him with Gonzalez, and it makes sense as long as he's healthy. Like you said, he's coming off an injury. Diggs, I think at his age and the coming off the injury that he is, and the fact that he's kind of a known diva to pair with your young quarterback, I think is risky. And I'm sure he's going to try and be on his best behavior to get paid. And it's not that he wasn't productive in Houston last year, especially at times. He was going to have 1,000 yards. He was going to be he was going to have a solid season with the Texans. But he's a diva, and he's a diva wide receiver that you're putting with a very young, impressionable, developing franchise quarterback. By the way, Diggs is coming off an injury, like I just said, and he's going to be the guy. Like nobody else. I know people are excited about Kyler Williams, wide receiver out of Washington State. They took in the 3rd or 4th round. But
I like him.
All the attention's on Diggs, So Diggs has got to show up. He's really their only legitimate, outside threat that they have, or at least proven. And I question whether or not, is May going to feel like he's got to force it in the ball a little bit? How much burst does Diggs have coming off this injury? Legitimate concerns there.
I mean, look at Josh Allen. He ate him alive in Buffalo. He's like,
and that's with Josh
throw
Allen.
me the ball more. Yeah, that's Josh Allen.
And that was with a team that was winning a ton, and with a quarterback. So a top 5 quarterback in everyone's mind, whether you love or hate him, he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league, and the Bills have been one of the top 5 most successful franchises, certainly during Diggs' tenure there. So,
yeah,
the fact that he was chirping then.
Yeah, he's going to keep chirping. But my whole point is this, too. He's a top 5 wide receiver because he gets 125 targets a year. He's a guy that always demands the ball. Maybe even more. He's always a guy just looking for the ball. And everybody said, well, the injury might humble him a little bit. No.
We'll see.
Do you know? No. Do you know Stephon Diggs? Come on. I don't think it's gonna work out for him in New England.
Yeah, I don't love the fit.
I love Kyle Williams. Kyle Williams is one of my favorite wide receivers out of the draft.
Yeah, but I just don't see the fit. And then they add Morgan Moses, who I can tell you firsthand, he played for the Jets 2 years ago. Absolutely stunk. He's a turnstile, human turnstile. So I don't love that. Will Campbell, everyone's raving about. We'll see. He's still an unproven commodity. He's going to have to play a very hard position at left tackle. I'm not rooting against him. A little bit, maybe. No. But I'm just saying, there's so many variables.
I like Will Campbell. Yeah.
Yeah. But there's so many variables with the Pats. And the biggest one of all is, does Drake make it better? He was turnover prone last year. I know everyone's expecting this big jump from him in this franchise. But I think there's so many things coming into us. I don't really love the Josh McDaniels hire, like you were saying, either. There's a reason why no team wanted to touch him these last few off seasons. The reason why he was unemployed. Right. He's as much of an offensive genius as he is. By the way, when he got a chance to be the head coach in Denver and with the Rams, they get worse. Sam Bradford, they went from Bradford went from having a very successful rookie year. They were middle of the pack offensively. Then McDaniels takes over year 2, tanked them. They had one of the worst offenses in the league. They won 1 or 2 games. So, I don't know.
Derek Carr.
I like Vrabel.
Derek Carr had a legitimate great year the year before Josh McDaniels came in, then shit the bed.
It's amazing without Tom Brady.
And I was just going to say, isn't it hard without Tom Brady? for you to look good. And like we're not here to crap on the Patriots. We're not.
No.
That's not like
We're being
what
real.
we're trying to do. But we have to acknowledge and be realistic. When we see something, we're gonna call it out. And so, speaking of call it out, let's talk about the AFC East as far as standings goes. What's the records that you have for each team? You can go first, and I'll jump in.
Yeah. So obviously we start at the top with the Buffalo Bills. I think they're probably. I mean, they're going to win the division. I think they're probably a 13, 14 win team. I have them. I have them winning 13 games. I think they go 13-4.
Holy shit, ticket!
I just like what they
Holy
did in the
smokes.
offseason. I really did. I think they got so much better. Just getting Milano back, Bosa, obviously he's healthy or not, but I think they got so much better at cornerback, which was really one of their issues last year. Was their secondary? One of their major issues was secondary. So
Yeah.
I think that's what they're looking at. And then second place, I'm gonna go with my Jets. I'll play the homer card. I guess I'll say they go 8-9. And then I think New England. I'll go New England third. I'll have them at 7-10, and I got Miami last. I think Miami could really implode, but I'll give them not to be a dick.
No,
I think they could really implode. I think they're 5-12. I think they're 5-12.
I would be controversial here, but no, it is what it is.
I think that has a chance to be really bad.
Yes, very bad. Very bad. I actually have the same order and very, very close as far as wins go. I had the Bills at 12-5. I have the Jets at 8-9. I have the Patriots at 7-10, and Miami is 6-11.
Okay, so we're very similar.
Yeah, it's literally right there, and like this is without like us like, hey, you guys are very similar. Like, no, this wasn't teed up before
Maybe we just
started.
know
Like
ball.
this is natural. We just know ball. But like eight wins for the Jets. Like if they get to that
I'd be
point,
thrilled.
you like it's unbelievable. That's incredible. What a turnaround. And like I said, as far as the Patriots goes, I love Trean Henderson. I think he's going to start maybe week 3 because I think Ramondre Stevenson just coughs up the ball too much. But I really think that Kyle Williams and Pop Douglas will be their two best targets outside of Stephon Diggs if he's demanding the ball that much. But I love Kyle Williams. And let's see what their defense does. I mean, they do have, pieces that could potentially work, but I just think that I don't have them being high in the AFC, to be honest. I think they have a tough bout, even with an easy schedule. I think they have one of the, top 2 easiest schedules in the NFL.
They do.
So it's one of the I mean, the AFC East, they do have a little bit of an easy schedule because they play each other, right? But I think this year, you'll see the Jets make a move, and Buffalo's there to stay as long as Sean McDermott, fucking Josh Allen are here. All right, let's get into the NFC East. So with the NFC East, you all know the teams. We don't have to break it down. But I will say this. I do think that it's a two-headed monster in the NFC East. And if people think this is surprising, I do want to discuss the Cowboys first. With the Cowboys, what they fall in love, and we said this many a times on this podcast, is it's Jerry's world. Who did they go and hire as the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys?
Yeah. My
Crickets.
former
Schottenheimer.
Former Jets OC under the Sanchez era.
Yeah. Schottenheimer is their new coach, right? And the fact that Micah Parsons wants out should be a glaring, gaping hole when it comes to the Cowboys front office. If you can't comprehend one of the best players in all of football wants out because he can't agree to a contract because you're being cheap, well, guess what? You're in for a rude awakening the entire season. Yes, you got George Pickens to help out that off with CD Lamb, and Dak Prescott, but you also got a running back and Javonte Williams who just tore his ACL, last year and the year before that, and then you go out and get a running back in blue, right? Jada Blue, who's I would say he's a decent back for sure, but like I think you're gonna have to find a way to make him comfortable. And let's be real, when Tony Pollard left, Dak Prescott had no help. And when that offensive line became very vulnerable, Dak Prescott was getting hurt left and right. He was making bad decisions. So Leo Collins is a nice piece for them to get. Real good piece. He's not at all. He's not the entire offensive line. I think that the Dallas Cowboys are going to have a tough year. I really believe that. I don't necessarily think that their defense got better. Travion Diggs is a beast, but Micah's going to be gone probably. He already wants out. He's not going to agree to a contract. Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones, you guys got to acknowledge you lost out. That guy's leaving. And he'll make it known over social media to let the world know how bad the Dallas Cowboys are running an organization. That's a fact. But with the Cowboys, talk about their schedule too. They have a really, really tough schedule. They have the 19th easiest schedule in football, meaning that they're at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to easy terms. And that doesn't help being in the NFC East either. You got to play against the Commanders, the Eagles. I think the Giants may have gotten better than the Cowboys. Potentially. I'm not jumping that gun, but potentially. But I do think that Dak Prescott, if Micah Parsons goes, I think Dak could be traded middle of the season. And the big reason why is because if Archie Manning is available and he's going into the 2026 draft, you bet your ass Dallas is trying to get him. You bet your ass Milton will be the quarterback for the Cowboys mid-season as Dak sits on the bench and watches this team run away, and you will have Dak Prescott no longer on the Dallas Cowboys. I believe that full-heartedly. I believe it. I believe it. Dallas, it's a different world there. They're Jerry's world, and they're living in it. As long as Jerry is popular, he's in the news, he's making money, guess what? He don't give 2 craps about the product on the field. That's a fact. Why did it take Jimmy Johnson 30 years to get into the Hall of Fame shrine? 30 years. One of your most winning coaches of all time. You know why? Yeah. Because time heals all wounds, and also the Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl with the Cowboys. But guess what? Jerry Jones is like, 30 years. We'll wait 30 years until this guy retires, leaves our team in order to put him in the Hall of Fame shrine. Crazy to me. But how do you feel about the Cowboys?
Yeah, I mean, I don't love them. Brian Schottenheimer, I know how vanilla his offense was going back to his time with the Jets, but I don't really like their offseason that much. Obviously when you're one of your franchise players, like Micah Parsons, wants out, not great. They brought back Odigizua on the defensive line.
Yep.
One of the lesser productive nose tackles in the NFL last year, according to PFF. They lose Zach Martin. Obviously, that's kind of literally the meat and potatoes of that offensive line, but also a leader in the locker room, a guy who was beloved. Micah Parsons famously talked about how they're not trying to win for Mike McCarthy. They want to win for Zach Martin because everyone loves him. So you lose another guy like that. A lot of pressure on Dak, obviously coming off the injury. They made the big splash with the Pickens trade, like you mentioned. They're a very interesting team. I don't really think they addressed a lot of their issues with the offensive line. So, you can have all the receivers you want. If you can't protect the quarterback, if he's not upright, you're shut out of luck. And coming off an injury and not having the protection that Dak needs is going to be tough. And yeah, like you said, it's a tough division to begin with. And honestly, I think the Giants, who we're going to talk about obviously eventually, but like everyone's kind of foregone conclusion. And listen, their schedule's tough. I'm not going to knock that, but like I think
really
the Giants had a better offseason than the Cowboys. I think they had the worst offseason in the
Unbelievable
division.
draft.
Yeah, I think that I do like their draft, and I think they have pieces similar to the Jets. I think there's pieces on that defense that you can really build around. Obviously, they got we're turning into a Giants thing. That's my bad, but regardless,
All right.
I just
We'll
don't.
transition to Giants. Go right ahead.
I just don't really like what Dallas did. If I'm comparing their offseason and everybody else's in that division, it's definitely dead last. And yeah, I mean, maybe this is the shakeup Jerry's looking for, where he's kind of like, hey, we tank, we got Arch, and then the marketing machine takes over and everything like that from there.
That's
but,
exactly it. Exactly it.
It could, the Schottenheimer hiring could be similar to the Gerard Mayo situation a year ago.
Yeah.
They had zero sense of
Dumpster.
urgency to bring in a coach and zero sense of urgency to really add legitimate pieces in free agency.
Deion Sanders was calling you to become the Cowboys head coach. Was begging to become the Dallas Cowboys head coach. Ridiculous. Cowboys fans, I feel bad for you guys. Shout out to all my friends that are Cowboys fans and my cousins, but you guys watch a really troubling organization. Let's get into the Giants, since you talked about the Giants. Like I mentioned, the Giants had I think an incredible draft. I'm a huge Cam Scalaboo fan. I love Abdul Carter coming out of Penn State. That dude was a beast of a mammoth. And then you had Jackson Dart, who I think fell a little bit, as far as production goes late in his career, but he made up for it in the combine. You could totally tell that he was bought in, and it seems like Brian Daboll does have a way with quarterbacks, right, with Josh Allen. I know Josh Allen's a unicorn, but when it comes to Brian Daboll and his coaching tactics, and I believe he did coach Tom Brady on the Patriots as well. So he does have a way with coaching real good quarterbacks and Hall of Fame quarterbacks and understanding the motives at hand, right? And so the reason why the Giants went all out as far as free agency goes, as far as draft goes, is because Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll are on the block. They are on the hot seat, by far the hottest seat in all of football right now. If they don't come away with 9 or more wins, I could see the Giants saying bye-bye to Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen. Now, letting Saquon Barkley walk to a division rival in the Eagles is one thing, but acquiring talent for Saquon would have been more helpful, right? And I think that was something that they tried to discuss if a contract was agreed upon, to try to get something in return for Saquon's replacement absence. But with the Giants, I want to talk about some of the moves that they did make, right? Let's talk about Javon Holland. I mean, Javon Holland, for me, is a guy that was absolutely overlooked in free agency. I loved him in Miami. Hard-hitting safety, could tackle, was like really the center field of Miami. Yes, he was sleeping sometimes in the secondary, allowing wide receivers to get deeper and deeper and deeper, depending on, where the quarterback play is outside the pocket. But also what I like too is, if you're going to have Jackson Dart as your quarterback as well, why not bring in Russell Wilson to kind of cater? Like figure out, okay, like this is how I learned when I came in. I ragged on Russell Wilson when he was with the Broncos, right? It was just one of those things where I think it was just a mess. It didn't work out for both sides. but we have to acknowledge that he was a star quarterback in his early years of his career. He made it to the Super Bowl. He won a Super Bowl.
Almost won a
He's a
second.
guy that could lead. Yeah, he lost obviously on the interception. That will never be forgotten. But I just look at Russell Wilson and his makeup and his intelligence when it comes to football. Is I think what he does well is just keeping plays alive and allowing his players, his superstars, to make the most of it, right? So Malik Neighbors, I think, is going to have a huge year. Anybody who's in fantasy, go pick up Malik Neighbors immediately. Like I said, I love Scatterboo. I like Tracy in the backfield. But I think their defense is really going to be a dominant force. When you have Brian Burns and Abdul Carter on the other side, and then you have Cleveon Thibodeau, and you got a strong, yeah, exactly, Dexter Lawrence in the middle. Like, they have a very strong 7. Now, let's call what it is in their secondary. It's not the best, right? But they will try to make sure that nothing happens downfield and allow the pass rush to really get after the quarterback. And I think that's what's important for a young team. And we talked about it at Two Ticket multiple times. If you have a young quarterback, what you need is 2 things in order to be successful. You need a good pass rush to get your quarterback more opportunities, and you need a good running game. And that running game translates to having a good offensive line. And so let's call it 3 things. That is the recipe to a successful rookie or second-year quarterback. If you can put that in place, getting after the quarterback and protecting the quarterback is absolutely important. Notice what the Detroit Lions did in their restart of an organization. Going to get a guy like Jared Goff. Going to build that offensive line in the draft. Adding pieces in free agency. Adding Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive line. That is what the New York Giants did. And so it's going to be all eyes on Brian Daboll this season, because his job will be at stake if things don't go right.
Yeah, and I mean, you really touched certainly upon a lot of it, but I mean, the one thing you did mention that I really want to talk about, I mean, outside of, obviously they drafted really well, right? So, I mean, everyone's raving about their draft. Abdul Carter falls to them. They make the right move there. Obviously, Jackson Dart, and then Scatterboo. So, I mean, they probably also have the most electric quarterback room in the league. When you think of Dart, Wilson, and Jameis Winston, I mean, I really hope Jameis gets to start at some point this year. I love watching that guy play. I love just watching him. I would watch it, like, if there was like a live feed, like, you know, what Jameis Winston is doing, I'd probably subscribe to that. You know, I don't have an I don't subscribe to anything on OnlyFans, hand to God. But if Jameis Winston had an OnlyFans where it was just like, hey, you could watch Jameis like go through his day, I'd watch that.
Hit up Cameo. Hit him up on Cameo. Pay him.
No, Jameis just seems like the best. He's been going around this offseason too, like trying to be like he thinks he's on The Sopranos. He keeps saying gabagool everybody and going out to eat at these restaurants in New York, being like, "Where's the gabagool?" This guy's electric. But anyways, to bring it back to football, Javon Holland, they got Paulson Adobo, like you mentioned, from the Saints, so they definitely got a lot better in the secondary. Adding Abdul Carter alone with Thibodeau, Lawrence, as you just talked about. Their defense is going to be very interesting, especially if Holland and Adobo can play to the level that we know they've shown capability to. You know, Adobo obviously really balled out in a contract year, and Holland, you know, maybe past his prime a bit, but I think he's still got something left in the tank, and I'm sure you've seen it at times. You know, he at least brings the energy. So,
he does.
Dart, I think, should sit all this year if I'm them, or maybe late in the year you bring it. The one thing I think is interesting is the Giants, they tried to trade up to get Cam Ward. They supposedly called on Stafford, and the Rams told them no. And they supposedly were very interested in Geno Smith as well.
So they did their homework.
They did their homework, yeah. And I really do like Brian Daboll. I think he's an excellent offensive mind. He knows what he's doing at quarterback. Obviously, it's well documented. you know, the fact he got to win a playoff game with Daniel Jones just what 2 years ago, 3 years ago is crazy. Um, I'm very curious to see what he does with Dart. I mean, we'll see. I mean, Dart kind of was the product of him being a first round pick was kind of the product of the draft process a bit. He's got a really good arm. He seems very likable. Everyone at Ole Miss talks about how good of a leader he is. But we'll see. I mean, I very much indifferent to him. He reminds me a bit of Zach Wilson, if I'm being honest, in terms of like what his is as a talent. Now, Wilson's biggest issue to me was like mental. Physically, obviously, he was very gifted, but he nothing ever clicked between the ear holes. So hopefully, Dart doesn't have that same issue. I'd like to see him. As a Jets fan who doesn't live in New York, I don't really hate the Giants as much as probably a lot of other Jet fans. In fact, I have friends that are Giants fans. I don't mind rooting for them. I feel the same way about the Mets as a Yankee fan. I think if I lived there, it'd be different. But anyways,
New
Giants
York
very curious to see what they did.
Just move to the Bronx, bro. Just move to the Bronx.
So Giants great offseason. I think they're going to be a very interesting team to follow. Hey, they could start. By the way, their schedule is brutal. They could start like 0-9. It sucks. And everything falls off. But
it's tough. It's tough. Just like the Cowboys. I think I said 19th. I flipped to 2. I think the Cowboys had the 5th toughest schedule at all football. So let's get into the Commanders. The Commanders are in a tough spot right now. Terry McLaurin wants out. Scary Terry can't agree to a contract. I mean, who wants to pay $30+ million to him? I don't think he's a $30+ million guy. I think he's more $25 to $30 million per year. I agree with possibly the way that the front office is looking at it. They did do something really special in going to get Deebo Samuel. I think Deebo can be utilized in a lot of different ways out of the backfield, which I think they're running, offensive plays for them out of the backfield. I think he's a secret weapon that they've been always wanting. And right now, I got to see it ticket. I do. But I do think that the system with what's working right now with Cliff Kingsbury and Dan Quinn, their system works. Now, it worked tremendously last year, right? They had a hell of a season. And even this offseason, they got Laramie Tunsil. And that was a smart acquisition on their part to help shore up that offensive line. Now, Bobby Wagner, really the staple, the captain to that defense. Marshawn Lattimore, they still have. They have, Sweat, I believe. So there are guys that can be a pest to teams. But I think what they have to acknowledge going into this year is last year was magical. Last year was incredible season for Washington. For a first-year head coach with the first-year rookie quarterback, with the offensive coordinator and Cliff Kingsbury, everything was working on all cylinders. My question is this: was that lightning in a bottle? Was that one time and done? It could be, but I gotta make sure that if Terry McLaurin leaves town, that they have something in return. They have something they can rely on. Because I do think Scary Terry was big down the stretch in games. He was there for Jaden Daniels as a security blanket down the field for game-winning touchdowns, third downs, big fourth downs. They went for it almost on every fourth down in the book. And so he played a major factor. But a lot of the weight is going to rely on Deebo Samuel if Scary Terry's out. And if that's the case, you got to kind of question Washington's thinking about the heir apparent to their number one wide receiver. Because I don't think Deebo Samuel is their number one. I wouldn't have him as number one. I would have him as 1B, maybe 2. At his point in his career, with all the wear and tear on that body, I would absolutely have Washington think twice about not making a move for George Pickens. If they were thinking about getting rid of Terry McLaurin, George Pickens was waiting for you to go get him. But you have to kind of be cognizant with the Commanders and what their makeup is last year going into this year. They most certainly have the capability of being an elite team in the NFL, but it's going to be relied heavily on the answer to what happens to Terry McLaurin. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that like they have obviously, like you said, they, kind of that magic carpet ride type season last year, upset the Lions in the
Yeah.
playoffs on the road with the rookie quarterback, and I would say even upset Tampa in the first round. I mean, to see a team go on the road with a rookie quarterback and win 2 games does not happen very often. Only a handful of guys have done that. Joe Flacco, Mark Sanchez, whatever. Sanchez, remind me again who he did that with.
No,
That's just have
no
to throw
answer.
that in there.
No
But
answer.
yeah, I
Nobody
mean,
cares. Nobody cares. Chicken.
I feel I feel like
Nobody cares.
you alluded to though. It's like, all right, can you repeat that magic? We talked about it. And people talked about it a year ago. You saw the Texans, and this reminds me very much of that. Where like Stroud had this great rookie year. They win a playoff game. They
Yep.
now obviously the Commanders got even further than the Texans did, and Daniels certainly looked more impressive doing it than Stroud did, but very similar in the sense that, hey, Stroud was unbelievable his rookie year. We're going to see him take this leap. And we didn't really see it. And I know the Texans still got to the playoffs, won the division, won a game. But and then obviously they had so many injuries. It was tough for him to, obviously
Tough.
overcome those
Yeah.
to the wide receivers. Diggs goes down, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, everyone's banged up. But with Washington, now they spent so much in the offseason. I think the Tunsil move was big, but I don't really love Debo as a fit there. I don't really love, obviously with McLaurin. How do you like that? I mean, the guy puts up 1,000. I mean, clearly, like it didn't really matter. Like he was putting up 1,000-yard seasons with like Heineke and Alex Smith and all these other guys before Daniels got there. And then Daniels gets there, his
Right.
numbers are virtually the same. I mean, I know Daniels is great, but I don't know. I certainly wouldn't pay him what they're asking. It's a very interesting scenario, but I don't really love like my star receiver making it about him when this team is trying to win a Super Bowl and the front office sold out to put together a team to win the Super
Facts.
Bowl. So
Facts.
that to me is a terrible sign. Debo, I mean, listen, it's documented too. He's been a Debo at times, and I don't think he can carry the load as their number one if
No.
McLaurin doesn't. Yeah, and and I
No
know
shot.
obviously agree. The other thing too I don't like is like Jonathan Allen's gone, and he was the general of that defense for them for a long time. They lose Jeremy Chin, who I liked in their secondary, so they lost some pieces that aren't easily replaceable. And then Zacchaeus and Diami Brown, obviously, they're not stud wide receivers, but they had good. Daniels had rapport with them, especially Brown. Brown
Yeah, he did.
was somebody
Yeah.
that emerged, late in the season. He had a huge game against the Lions, outplaying his namesake Amon-Ra St. Brown on the other side. So I think Washington's going to regress. I don't love them as much as I think the media does, and it seems like we're on the same page with that one again, Shark. I think they're still a playoff team probably, but listen, you get Daniels now. There's so much film on him, a lot more pressure, and I'm not knocking Daniels. I just think that how much better similar what have I thought of Stroud? Go to make the comparison again. I don't know how much better
Yeah.
you can get year one to year two, because the floor was high, so like the room from the floor to the ceiling when the floor is high is less. And I kind of feel that way
Look.
about Daniels. I don't know how much higher the ceiling is from what he showed
Yeah.
year one, because he was so mature, very mature coming
Yeah, he
out.
was.
Played 4 or 5, played in these pro style offenses. Was under Herm Edwards, Brian Kelly, a bunch of NFL guys at Arizona State when he was there, and then obviously LSU had studs around him. And then he gets to the NFL. The coaching empowers him. He's got Kingsbury as his OC,
Yep.
empowers him. I just don't know how much better he gets. I think he can get better, but
Look,
like, I don't. I don't think it's that much better.
I'll be real with you, Ticket. If he goes on and they make it to the playoffs, it may be one of the best single seasons for a second year quarterback to do what he's done. I don't see that happening because they are limited with options offensively. They are going to be, especially if Terry McLaurin switches sides going from Washington to New England, which could be something in the works. Um, and then you also have Brian Robinson, who's in the backfield. He gets hurt. What are you going to do there? He was a great running back last year late in the season. But when you look at the totality of the team, it relies heavily on Jaden Daniels. And a second year quarterback is the last thing you want to do is rely heavily on him to do everything. And that's exactly what they'll make him do. Is he'll try to be the hero. And when you try to be the hero, that's when injuries come into play. That's when, the offensive line tries to do too much. That's when you overthink offensive strategies with Cliff Kingsbury. That's when you have gaping holes in your defense, like you mentioned with Jonathan Allen being the beast he was, being the captain and really the stop blocker to that run offense, opposing run offense. He was dominant. He was like the best defensive tackle to do that. But one thing I want to mention too with the Commanders is if there's any coach that can build trust and build morale for a team like this that's going through the Terry McLaurin type of situation, it is Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn has dealt with like experiences like this in the past with the Cowboys. He's dealt like this with experiences, a traumatic loss against the New England Patriots, against in the Super Bowl, being up 30-3. So I just look at Dan Quinn, and he does have the makeup. They have a good player in Jaden Daniels. Their defense is okay. Let's see if they can get better. They have to, figure, especially with Jeremy Chin, like you said. Without him, that's huge. So I think the Commanders are actually in a tough spot, and I don't think it gets better, especially if McLaurin leaves. Let's talk about the Eagles. The Eagles, defending champs, right? I'm a little bit pessimistic with the Eagles this year, and here's why. They did get rid of a lot of guys. They did. When you think of who did they get rid of? Milton Williams, Josh Sweat, Darius Slay, C.J. Gardner-Johnson. When you think of all those guys, right, they had an impact on that championship team. Now, they did get A.J. Dillon. They did get Adoree Jackson. They did get Josh Uche, Kenyon Green.
Azeez Ojulari.
Yeah. So, I mean, they added okay pieces in the offseason, but I look at their key losses as being the identity of their team. Like, C.J. Gardner-Johnson was their identity. The cornerback position, and actually I think he carted off the field today with a serious injury, so I hope he's okay. And then Darius Slay, the way he went about his business every single game is he wanted to dominate the secondary and just take over wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, right? And so I think the Eagles, offensively they are tremendous, right? But how much more can they do offensively to help that defense? I don't think Jalen Hurts, and I think Saquon Barkley's great. I think that offensive line, I give it like an A-, B+ type of rating. But with their defense, that's what they're going to hurt. So, again, it's kind of like the same boat with the Houston Texans. Are they going to go out and, score 30 points a game in order to stay in games? I think the Eagles, I really think that the NFC East is going to be a tough battle. I do. I don't think it's going to be, as chalk. I don't think it's going to be chalk as was in previous years. Now, if Saquon Barkley has the season that he did last year, that season, again, will never be done. He was unbelievable, in every single category. He scored touchdowns. He had 50 plus runs. I think one of the highest 50 plus runs numbers wise. I forget the number he had, but it's in NFL all time record. So you look at the bigger picture with the Eagles heading into this season. I don't like their chances winning the Super Bowl, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure. They're in a very tough division. I think they are in a tough division because they are the best team in the division, but they're in a bit of a tough division, I think. So, if we're talking about the Eagles and their experience and winning 2024 championship, they have it under their belt. They've been there and done that. So maybe they can go back to that and dominate that way, utilizing that experience. Because they still have A.J. Brown, they still have Devontae Smith, they still have Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, Shore offensive line. It's just their defense gives me worries in order to try to defend that title. And I don't think they will. So I think that the Eagles, I'll start off with the NFC East in the standings wise. I think the Eagles finish 11-6. I think that the Washington Commanders finish 9-8. I think that the Giants finish 8-9, and I think the Dallas Cowboys finished 7-10. And with all that, they do have a tough schedule. Every single team in that division has a tough schedule. So feedback on the Eagles, feedback on the standings.
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, the Eagles did lose a lot, but they also retained a lot of their, big pieces. Extend Saquon, extend Lane Johnson and Zach Bond. Somehow they had maybe the best inside linebacker prospect in the draft fall to them, Jahad Campbell out of Alabama. And then they got one of the best safeties in the class with Mabuka out of Texas. So it's like, oh, well, the rich got richer. That's kind of what it felt like. Jahad Campbell's going to be an absolute stud for them. I really don't know how he fell. But regardless, like I said, Lane Johnson, Saquon, Bond, you bring them back, you run it back. They lose Kellen Moore at OC, but the guy they promoted into the OC role has been there since Hurts has been there. I think since 2020 or 21, he's been their passing game coordinator. So I don't really expect much of a drop off with losing Moore to the Saints. I mean, the Eagles, it's their division to lose. They're the most well-built roster in football. We saw and how they build Shark, like you talked about earlier. When you're starting fresh and you're taking over a program, you need to build in the trenches, and that's what they did. It's what Howie Roseman's done. It's what Sirianni has echoed, and you see it. And the fact that they got A.J. Dillon now in that backfield with Saquon is crazy scary because that is, you got the two quadzillas right there. I mean, those guys got tree trunks for quads and thighs. Those guys are monstrous. I don't know how you want to stand in front of either one of them when they're coming full speed at you. God forbid A.J. Dillon hits the second level because you are screwed. But
watch out.
Yeah, to talk about the division, I mean, I have a similar, maybe it's almost similar. Eagles, I think they'll 13-4, 12-5, something like that. I think they'll win the division comfortably. I have the Commanders next at, I'll say 9. Yeah, I'm going to say 9-8. I also have the Dallas Cowboys going 9-8. And then I got the Giants. I hate to say it because I do like them, but I like what they did. I just think their schedule's so tough. I think they'll win 4 games. I don't know, 4 and so what's that? 4-13.
4 games?
Yeah, I think they'll win 4 games. I just think the schedule's they legitimately might not win a game until week 10 or 11.
And you were in favor of the Giants and what they did this offseason.
Well, I did like what they did. It's just I don't think
you just completely shat on their parade. You said, you know what? Let's bring the rain. No more sunshine. No more blue skies. Here comes the rain all over you, New York City MetLife Giants fans.
It's the schedule really. I don't dislike the team. I dislike the schedule.
Okay.
I don't just like the roster. I just like the schedule. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think the surprise.
But if you
might
like
be
the
Dallas.
roster, doesn't it shouldn't matter. Like it shouldn't matter if you feel like they're competitive enough to beat the teams on their schedule. It's any given Sunday, right?
I understand.
And so like,
But it's every given
but,
Sunday
like,
for a lot of Sundays
let
in a
me
row that are going to be tough.
agreed. But let me tell you this: did you think Bo Nix was going to have the season that he had with Denver
No,
Broncos
I
last
did
year?
not like Bo Nix. I still don't. But
But
can
my
I just
point is
read
like,
you off?
go ahead.
All right. So
Go ahead.
Commanders the Commanders to start.
It's close. It's closer than what people think.
Okay,
If
but
Terry
do you think they win
McLaurin's
that
not
game?
there, I can see the Giants winning.
Okay, but like, would you favor them? Would you, if you were to put money on it?
No,
would
I
you
wouldn't
think they
favor
win that
them.
game?
No, I wouldn't
Okay.
favor them. I wouldn't favor them.
At Dallas, winnable game, but not a gimme.
Not
And
not a
then-
gimme, but at Dallas division. No,
Chargers,
maybe.
that's
Maybe.
a tough one. Saints, I think they win. Saints is a win. Eagles at Denver. Eagles
No.
again. Niners,
No.
Packers. I mean,
No.
that's a brutal.
Yeah.
Lions, Bears, Pats.
Oh my.
Yeah, Lions, Bears, Pats. Yeah, Okay, good one. But you see what I'm saying? That there's not a lot of games where you're like, oh, they'll win that one.
Yeah. No,
That's a lot
I
of
can
shit.
see the.
They got those teams
I
that-
can see. I can see the strength of schedule coming into play.
Yeah.
They have the hardest, like one of the hardest schedules in
Yeah,
football.
I mean, like you read
So
it off.
I-
They do have one of the hardest schedules.
Yeah, and I understand, but like, I don't know. I do have like the Cowboys just finishing last. I know like a lot of people are like probably shaking their heads at home, but like, I don't think Brian Schottenheimer is the guy, and I also don't think like they did enough on the defensive side of football. And if Micah Parsons is gone, let me tell you,
That changes
they're
everything.
in for a tough season. He does everything for that team. Everything. So I just think it's gonna fall off. If Mike, let me put in a caveat. If I may. Because Michael Parsons wants out. If Parsons stays, the Cowboys will finish 9-8, 10-7. If Parsons gone, 7-10. Easily.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
agree.
even close.
I think they could make the playoffs though. If all breaks right for them, I think they're a 10-win postseason.
At 7
team.
and 10?
No, 10-7.
Oh, 10-7. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Wait, so
But-
you think 10-7 if Micah Parsons gone?
No, I'm saying if he stays, I agree with you. I think they're 10.
Okay,
Potentially
okay.
could win 10 games. I think if he's
Okay.
gone, they're like a
I just
6-7
want
team.
to clarify that for the listeners because
Yeah.
put it in writing. Put it in
I'm
writing.
not saying without. Yeah, I'm not
That
saying
if-
without Parsons, they're a 10-win team.
Correct. If Micah Parsons is no longer a Dallas Cowboy, it's going to affect them tremendously,
Of course.
without a doubt.
Of course.
No, I know it's of course, but people still would put like 9-8 or 10-7, on that team, and I'm like, no, like he's the catalyst of that entire team, like he's the attitude of that entire team. So, great talk about the AFC East tonight. We love that division, as you can imagine. We love breaking down the NFC East. We will continue Camp Confidential for weeks to come. We'll sprinkle it in as we talk about page turners as well. We do have Showtime author coming on next week. Jeff, he's a great guy. Can't wait to talk about Shohei in his first year with the LA Angels and his experience in Japan. Cannot wait for this to continue. Ticket. Look forward to everybody tuning in next week. Thank you and good night. And also, don't forget to click on the polls on X, baby. Let's go. Who do we got winning these divisions? Do you got the Eagles? Do you have the Bills? Vote right now. We'll check you out
Probably
next
do.
week.